Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy, and I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the Nev, and we are in the book of 2nd Chronicles, which is, remember, is written in the 500 BCE era, and biblical scholars think was written by the prophet Ezra, but they don't really know. It's certainly contemporary with Ezra, and it is at a fundamental point in the history of Judaism. They've been taken into diaspora, into Babylon, and these 1st and 2nd Chronicles is part of how they are remembering their cultural identity and the people who were important in that cultural identity before they were talking about their kings, their leaders, their origin story. Because that's how you keep your culture alive. So, the Queen of Sheba visited Solomon. 2nd Chronicles, chapter 9. When the Queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame, she came to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions. Arriving with a very great caravan with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for him to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba saw the wisdom of Solomon, as well as the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, the cupbearers in their robes, and the burnt offerings he made at the ascent by which he went up to the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. So she was very impressed. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe what they said until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half the greatness of your wisdom was told to me. You have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your men must be. How happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on his throne as king to rule for the Lord your God. Because of your love of your God for Israel and his desire to uphold them forever, he has made you a king over them to maintain justice and righteousness." Then she gave the king 120 talents, that is about 4.5 tons, or about 4 metric tons, of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. There had never been such spices as those the Queen of Sheba gave to Solomon, or King Solomon, I should say. Then the men of Hiram and the men of Solomon brought gold from Ophir. They also brought algum wood, ALGUMWOOD. That's got a footnote of B, and that's probably Almug, ALMUG wood. So, and precious stones. The king used the algum wood to make steps for the temple of the Lord and for the royal palace, and to make harps and lyres for the musicians. Nothing like them had ever been seen in Judah. So very impressive quality to this wood. King Solomon gave Queen Sheba all she desired and asked for. He gave her more than she had brought to him. Then she left and returned with her retinue to her own country. So an exchange of goods and gifts. It's good. You've given me so much from your country. Here is the equivalent of that from mine, because, nation making and being at peace with another leader, a queen and a king. You're not looking for war. You're seeking peace. Okay. Solomon's splendor. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents. Yeah, you got that right. 666 talents. Which is about, It's got a footnote of C down here. So that is about 25 tons or 23 metric tons, not including the revenues brought in by merchants and traders. Also, the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold, 600 bekas, B-E-K-A-S, B-E-K-A-S. It's got a footnote of D. That is probably about 7.5 pounds or 3.5 kilograms of hammered gold went into each shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold with 300 bekas. That's got a footnote of E. That's about 3 3/4 pounds or 1.7 kilograms of gold in each shield. The king put them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then the king made a great throne inlaid with ivory and overlaid with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps, and a footstool of gold was attached to it. On both sides of the seat were armrests, with a lion standing beside each of them. 12 lions stood on the 6 steps, one in each side of the step. Nothing like it had ever been made for any other kingdom. All King Solomon's goblets were gold, and all the household articles in the palace of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. Nothing was made of silver, because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's day. The king had a fleet of trading ships. Footnote of F. Hebrew of the ships that would go to Tarshish. That's a location. Tarshish. They exported turquoise from Tarshish. Okay, so the king had a fleet of trading ships manned by Hiram's men. So that's got a footnote of G. Also, Huram in Hebrew, which is just a variant of Hiram. Once every 3 years it returned. So one for 3 years. It's a long trek. Carrying gold, silver, and ivory, and apes and baboons. So they're clearly making a circuit, and apes and baboons would suggest they're somewhere in Asia or Africa. Africa being more likely, because the Mediterranean Sea does go, over to that general area. King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. All the kings of the earth sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. Year after year, everyone who came brought a gift, articles of silver and gold, and robes, weapons, and spices, and horses and mules. Solomon had 4,000 stalls of horses and chariots, and 12,000 horses, or charioteers. Yeah, I get you. And I know that's like, so remember that you need a certain number of horses to pull a chariot, and then you also need a certain number of people who are trained to be in a chariot, one that is steering the horses and one that is shooting the arrows to make it a mobile unit. And this is, you should know that this is happening, and it would, this is about, I'm going to say about 3,200 BC, where we're at right here. It would take them until what is, for the time of the writing of 2 Chronicles, to come up with a saddle and to be on the back of the horse while in war. Not that that's true in all countries, but it's true for this country. So, it's roughly 2,000 years to get on the back of the horse. Which he kept in the chariot cities and also with him in Jerusalem. He ruled, because you think about the garage that you need to house these chariots and these horses. It's a lot. It's a very big horse farm. How many horse farms do you know of that have 12,000 horses in it? He ruled over all the kings from the river, get footnote of I, that is the Euphrates, to the land of the Philistines as far as the border of Egypt. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as plentiful as sycamore fig trees in the foothills. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt. J, that is probably Muzur, M-U-Z-U-R, and that's in the region of Cilicia, C-I-L-I, or Cilicia, that's really what it is, Cilicia, C-I-L-I-C-I-A, Cilicia, and from all other countries. Yeah, because in that region, Saudi Arabia, that's where Arabian horses came from. They were far more advanced with what they were doing with horses than what the Israeli people or the Egyptian people were doing. Just so you understand, they came up with saddles sooner. There are plenty of regions in which they came up with saddles very early instead of chariots first. So, I mean, it's sort of like a military warfare advancement between here and there, different regions. Solomon's death. As far as the other events of Solomon's reign, from the beginning to the end, are they not written? Are they not written in the records of Nathan the prophet, in the prophecy of Ahijah the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo the seer concerning Jeroboam son of Nebat? Solomon's reign in Jerusalem over all. Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel's 40 years. Then he rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David with his father. And Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him as king. So, remember, this is also written from the priest's perspective. So now we're going to get to see what the priest's perspective is about Rehoboam. Because remember, Rehoboam asked two sets of people what he should do with the request. And the older people told them, give them what they need. Like, give them, lighten it, because it doesn't need to be so heavy. You guys aren't doing all these big building works. And they will worship you. They will love you. You'll be a great king to them. And his friends said, push him harder. And he went with that. And there was consequences. So, how did the Levites feel about the choice that Rehoboam made that led to a permanent crack and there being two nations, Israel and Jerusalem, Judah and Israel, not one and the same? How do they feel about that? Because the Levites are stationed in either way. It's not like, the Levites over here don't recognize the Levites over there. To them, they're still one family. So, and quite frankly, in Judah, the Levites and the priests are safer when they tend to be over there in Israel. So, how do they feel? Okay. If you want to find out, you're going to need to come back for the next video, friends. Hello, friends. So, Bible study, the Niv, Acts, chapter 26, verses 1 through 32. So, all of chapter 26. When we left off, we have Paul before Agrippa. Now, I want to make this clear. This is not the same Agrippa from Agrippa Squares. I mean, you are talking about, like, maybe year 3 AD. And that Agrippa who did Agrippa Squares, that's for the ciphers, he's in, like, the 1300s. So it's a long time. Agrippa is a name. It's just, at the time, it was I'm not going to necessarily call it common, but you can find several Agrippas in history. We'll word it like that. So it's a Latin name that's just not used anymore. Which really means that it should now become a baby trend, and everybody should start naming their kids Agrippa. It's a boy name. If you're going to keep track, if you're going to do that. Not that I actually care, boy name, girl name. I don't have children, so that's not for me to decide, really. Chapter 26. Then Agrippa said to Paul, this is King Herod's grandson, okay? And he, unlike Herod, who was basically, a puppet. And I'm not saying he's not a puppet for the Romans. What I'm saying is he was actually a religious zealot and was hard on the Christian church in history. I mean, they can, he's a real historical figure, and they can find him. And he was rough on the Christian church because of his religious zeal. Then Agrippa said to Paul, "You have permission to speak for yourself." So Paul motioned with his hand and began his defense. "King Agrippa," so he's talking to the other Jew in the room, the other educated person in the law in the room, "I consider myself fortunate to stand before you today as I make my defense against all the accusations of the Jews, and especially so because you are well acquainted with all the Jewish customs and controversies." He's versed in the law of his people. So is Paul. Remember, these are a little less ministers, a little bit more politicians. The Sanhedrin, Sadducees, educated people, right? Degrees, learned, but they don't believe in the soul. Pharisees, degrees, learned, they do believe in the soul. Okay? But still, it's the law. The religion is the rule of law of the land for the Jewish culture, but not for the Romans. For the Romans, the rule of law is something very empirical, which it is also for the Jewish people. The difference is being that the Roman law says you can't just be killed for things that you say unless you say the wrong kind of thing to the wrong person. Like if you threaten Caesar's life, yeah, you're going to die. But if you're just walking along the streets and you get into an argument with somebody and nobody's hitting anybody, you get told to move along. You're not getting arrested. All right, so there's a difference. Because Jewish law has you being killed for blasphemy. And Roman law does not allow that. There's too many gods. They don't worship the same ones. And they can't, they'd be throwing people in jail all the time. Just don't kill each other. And especially so because you are well acquainted with the Jewish customs and controversies. Therefore, I beg you to listen to me patiently. Because remember, Jesus just died recently. This is Guy's, grandfather was the king during that time frame. He was alive. This is a grown man. He was alive when Jesus was around and preaching. So, like the rest of Jerusalem, he knows who he is. The Jews all know the way I have lived ever since I was a child, from the beginning of my life in my own country, and then also in Jerusalem, because remember, he's from Tarsus, which is another country. Traded hands back and forth during all those wars in the Old Testament. They have known me for a long time and can testify, if they are willing, that according to the strictest sect of our religion, I lived as a Pharisee. So that's full-on belief. That's Nazirite vows every day. It's a lot of different stuff, which it really means it's either he took a Nazirite vow and that's why he can be a Pharisee, or he's a Levite. So consecrated to serve God for his entire existence since before he was born. And now it is because of my hope on what God has promised our fathers that I am in trial today. This is a promise our 12 tribes are hoping to see fulfilled as they earnestly serve God day and night. Like they are actively supposed to seek their Messiah. He's reminding them of that. O King, it is because of this hope that the Jews are accusing me. Why should any of you consider it incredible that God raises the dead? I, too, was convinced that I ought to do all possible to oppose the name of Jesus of Nazareth. And that is just what I did in Jerusalem. On the authority of the chief priests, I put many of the saints in prison, and when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them. And many a time I went from one synagogue to another to have them punished. I tried to force them to blaspheme. In my obsession against them, I went into foreign cities to persecute them. He was like, I was full of religious zeal, the hate that they are showing. I had it in my heart for these people. I must vanquish them. On one of these journeys, I was going to Damascus with the authority and the commission of the chief priests. About noon, O king, as I was on the road, I saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me and my companions. We all fell to the ground when I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic. So that's you know what language Jesus speaks. As opposed to, so like things like the Lord's Prayer, it's translated from like Aramaic to Hebrew to Greek to English, well, to German to English. So the wording may vary. That's why we have these different versions of the Bible. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads, or, like the spear, to kick against me. Then I asked, who are you, Lord? I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. The Lord replied, now get up, stand on your feet. I've appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness that you have seen me and what I will show you. I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I am sending you to them to open their eyes and turn from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, so that they may receive forgiveness of sins and place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. Now, this is very important because a lot of Christians are European. And the only way that Europeans get to be Christian is because Jesus is sending Paul to the Gentiles. Because he said so, because he even said so to Peter. Because before this, every European person would have had to have converted to Judaism to be in heaven. That was their belief structure. That's really what all this fighting is about. Who gets in the club? Because it's always been about that. Even with the nobles and the kings, no matter if it's in the Bible or anywhere else, who gets to be in the club? Who's important enough? Do you got the right genes? Do you got the right DNA? Divine right to rule comes from the consecration of the Levites. It's what the Catholic Church says that they're repeating, that because their people come from the apostles who were appointed by Jesus, even though there's passages in there where it's like, hey, Jesus said, don't stop people from healing in my name, because anybody who can do that is your friend. They are on your side. Right? Not division. Division is man-made. It always is. We see the differences. Nature doesn't really see it. So then, King Agrippa, verse 19, I was not disobedient to the vision from heaven. First to those in Damascus, then to those in Jerusalem, and in all of Judea, and to the Gentiles also, I preached they should repent and turn to God and prove their repentance by their deeds, by our actions that we take, how we interact with the world. Is how we prove whether or not we're good. That is why the Jews seized me in the temple courts and tried to kill me. But I have had God's help to this very day. So I stand here and testify to the small and great alike. I am saying nothing beyond what the prophets and Moses said would happen. That the Christ would suffer, and the first to rise from the dead would proclaim light to his own people and to the Gentiles. At this point, Festus interrupted Paul's defense. You are out of your mind, Paul, he shouted. Your great learning is driving you insane. Ooh, and have I been there before? I've got 5 degrees in my life, so okay. I am not insane, most excellent Festus, Paul replied. What I'm saying is true and reasonable. This is how any devoutly religious person would have responded to this stimuli that I have. Tell me where I was unreasonable. Tell me what you would have done differently. Nobody can give him an answer because there isn't a different answer. The king is familiar with these things, and I can speak freely to him because he's a religious zealot. I am convinced that none of this has escaped his notice because this was not done in a corner. King Agrippa, do you believe in the prophets? I know you do, because he's a zealot. Then Agrippa said to Paul, do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian? Paul replied, short time or long, I pray God that, and I pray to God, that not only you, but all who are listening to me today may become what I am, except for these chains. Then the king rose, and with him the governor and Bernice, and those sitting with them. They left the room, and while talking with one another, they said, "This man is not doing anything that deserves death or imprisonment." Agrippa said to Festus, "This man would have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar. But he likely would have lost his life, because those Jews want to kill him while he's on the road. The moment he's out of Roman custody, he's no longer safe." 2 birds, 1 stone. In their attempt to stop him from spreading the word of Jesus, they're sending him to what is the most powerful man in the world to have a direct audience, because he asked for it. You never know where Creator's going to send you in this world. So always keep your head on. Keep your heart clear and your conscience clear, so you can see the very narrow footpath that he's opening for you. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name is Amy. I am an ordained minister. We are in Bible study. We're in the NIV, and we will be through the rest of 2025. The beginning of 2026, we'll start the KJV. We are, in this moment, in the Psalms, Book 1, Psalm 17, a prayer of David. So, "Hear me, O Lord, my righteous plea. Listen to my cry. Give ear to my prayer. It does not rise from deceitful lips. May my vindication come from you. May your eyes see what is right. Though you probe my heart and examine me at night, though you test me, you will find nothing. I have resolved that my mouth will not sin. As for the deeds of men, by the word of your lips, I have kept myself from the ways of the violent. My steps have held your paths. My feet have not slipped. I call on you, O God, for you will answer me. Give ear to me and hear my prayer. Show the wonder of your great love, for you who save by your right hand those who take refuge in you from their foes. Keep me as an apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings from the wicked who assail me, from my mortal enemies who surround me. They close up their callous hearts, and their mouths speak with arrogance. They have tracked me down. They now surround me with eyes alert to throw me to the ground. They are like a lion, hungry for prey, like a great lion crouching in cover. Rise up, O Lord, confront them. Bring them down. Rescue me from the wicked by your sword. O Lord, by your hand, save me from such men, from the men of this world, whose reward is in this life. You still the hunger of those you cherish. Their sons have plenty, and they store up wealth for their children. And I, in righteousness, I will see your face. When I awake, I will be satisfied with seeing your likeness. Till next video, friends.